I mean, it's been kind of an interesting week, right? With other stuff. And
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about how I've been really thinking, like trying to be in the focus on what you can control
Yeah.
state of mind. So I don't
Yeah.
know if we can talk about that in a mental health way, but also maybe in a training way.
Yeah, because I think like a lot of times, when there's things that you can't necessarily affect or change,
Hmm.
and then being able to kind of work around that at the same time and find the good things about something that may not necessarily be the most positive.
Hmm.
Um, the most positive from maybe your point of view, because there's other people's point of view.
Hmm.
I think I was trying to explain to my son that, like, it's never fun when your team doesn't win.
Right. Yep.
And I think because of rowing and
Hmm.
because of the many times that you're out there competing against
Hmm.
another boat, you know that someone's gonna win, you know that someone's gonna lose, and all that really matters is when you get off the water, you're still friends, you're still able to even a rival team, they're still rowers at the same time. So
Hmm.
like we still share this camaraderie. So like
Hmm.
even though everybody in the United States was not happy about what happened on Tuesday, like we're all still Americans.
Hmm.
So I think that maybe that was a rowing lesson that I was able to
Yeah.
kind of translate to my son because he was getting a little bit sad about, certain
Hmm.
people at school are walking around and
Yeah.
super excited. And I was like, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like when your team wins, when you win the
Yeah.
race, your first reaction is to like go crazy and just start splashing the water and stand up and walk across a couple people to get to the person in the bow who was like, your best friend or something. But,
Hmm.
after that all calms down, we're still all
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah. That's a good, I really like that. It's a good way of thinking about it. And I think, really thinking about rowing over the years and, probably at times when maybe you're having the best season ever and you feel like everything is gelling and everything is working and everybody's on the same page and everybody's putting in 100%
Yeah.
and you just feel like so close as a team and, you don't always know the other teams could be having just as good of a season, and then you go out to compete, and even though, you might even get a worse result than you thought, you got last year, and things weren't as good, and that's just the way things go sometimes, and I think just the resilience of knowing that it will be hard because, as long as it doesn't defeat you, right? Like it motivates you. I think that's the key, right? Like you've been through it, you can get through it again, and you know
Yeah.
even more what it takes, and that you just have to know how to push yourself maybe even that much more. So you
Yeah.
keep growing. So, yeah.
Exactly. And for rowers, this is the season of growth now. This is like the
Hmm.
time where we all kind of, we put our oars away, we put our boats away, we kind of go into the lab as I like to think
Hmm.
about it. And as I'm starting to work with some kids who are transitioning between fall and winter and expectations and
Hmm.
trying to be realistic and using the numbers and explaining. I had a client the other day who was, just really disappointed with the fall season in the sense that they didn't get a lot of feedback.
Hmm.
And so because they didn't have this feedback, they were kind of like, why am I not in the A boat? Like, why am I not, even though potentially they have an erg score that's in like, the top mix, like in the top
Hmm.
mix of 8 people, if you're number 6, 7, 8 of
Hmm.
those people, is there the potential that a coach could be seeing something on the water that you're doing and they don't put you in that 1V?
Hmm.
And then you're sitting there with this really great erg time,
Hmm.
but not the feedback to tell you why you weren't in that
Hmm.
first boat. And so
Right.
I'm working through a lot of that with a couple clients who I'm seeing right now as they transition and and then there's um do I do winter training with my team, or do I
Mm-hmm.
train at home and do my own thing, or do they come and work with me and they do their thing that way, like trying to
Yeah.
figure out what's the best route to take. And when I talk to my clients, I always suggest to them that they should train with their team. If there's an opportunity to train with the team, they should train with the team.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that that's where you can learn quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
However, the training by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
like I always think of like training with the team teaches you how to be like fast in the group sense,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to train, like if you want to go faster, you have to train by yourself. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like you can't go faster with just that team
Mm-hmm.
kind of interaction. You need to be able to like be in your basement on your erg by yourself and be
Mm-hmm.
challenging yourself. And I
Yeah.
think when you learn how to do that, then it makes it that much easier to go faster
Right.
at practice.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, so that's where, that's been my struggle this week with my clients is kind of like, okay, if you want to go that fast, you got
Mm-hmm.
to do, speaking about mental health, they talk about the shadow
Yeah.
work, like where
Mm-hmm.
you kind of, step back and take a look at yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I always think of the shadow work for rowing being like the basement erging, like
Mm-hmm.
by yourself, 5
Yeah.
in the morning. You might have your earphones on, you might be watching a TV show, and it's just stroke after stroke after stroke. It's stuff that you do that nobody else sees.
Right. And
And
you're the only one you're accountable for, right? So that's
mhm.
the hard part.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, kids are young and high
Mm-hmm.
schoolers are, I mean, they're only a little bit older than those middle schoolers. And like
Yeah.
trying to like they want to go fast, like up
Mm-hmm.
here they want to go fast, but they
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's tough to do what it means. And there's those special people. It's always those special people on those high school teams that drive everybody bonkers. Like they're doing all sorts of meters. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing an hour in the morning, a half hour in the evening. Nobody sees this.
Nobody sees it. Yeah.
Nobody sees any of it. All they see is
Mm-hmm.
2K day. They finish their 2K and they're just staring at everybody else
Mm-hmm.
because everybody else is still testing.
Yep.
Like they're like, how are they so fast? And
Yeah.
I try to tell my clients who are trying to go faster, like
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like they're beating up the erg. They're really just working on endurance. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're young, you need the endurance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
all of that really boring rowing that somehow they're convincing themselves to do and they're driving everybody else nuts because they're so fast. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting time right now, the transition between fall to winter. And
Yeah.
I feel like with the happenings of the past week, you kind of feel like there's just kind of like a transition in general.
Yeah, definitely.
We're
Yeah.
coming out of a season where we were very like kind of like heavily divided, people
Mm-hmm.
having opinions, seeing things on television, hearing it on the radio, seeing signs in
Mm-hmm.
people's front yards, and then all of a sudden it's like dead stop of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yep.
is a decision that was made, and like it's like, what are my plans for the next 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
Even though it may
Yeah.
not have gone my way in that
Right.
sense, like, what can I do?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
from a community standpoint, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the things that happen um, are really more community driven. Things
Mm-hmm.
that change your day to day or is being there for your community. So,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that this really inspires everybody just to take a step back
Mm-hmm.
and
Think
to kind of,
small, right? Think
yeah,
small.
I think, yeah.
Your fam, yourself, your family, your team, your boathouse,
Yeah.
that's where, especially young people, that's where they can have an impact that is practical and achievable and will mean something. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that on my drive in. I was like, on my way home yesterday, because one of the faculty came in and we were talking, and he's like, I thought of you because that's like the one thing I always say is focus on what you can control and just get rid of the other stuff out of your mind, like just focus on the stuff that you have influence over, because that can help you just like not spend time worrying about stuff that is not anything you can do anything about. And that's kind of where we are this week. I work with students all the time,
Hmm.
and they have so many things that they're dealing with every day. They're dealing with, even and in high school, you have high school kids, you have college kid.
Yeah.
they have assignments every day. They have quizzes, tests multiple times a week, group
Yeah.
projects. Hannah had a presentation today, and they so many things to like worry about and stress about. And so they have a lot that they can control, but it's like, okay, you did what you could do, and now you got to move on, and just
Yeah.
you did the best you can. Don't worry about it. Once it's done, like that's the part that my kids get into trap about is like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't think I did well. I don't think I did well. And it's like, okay, well, you did the best you can. Like it's not worth
Mhm.
stressing about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yep.
Yeah. It's tough. It's
Hmm.
tough. And like you said, the kids have so many things going on and just
Hmm.
and we have so many things going on too,
Yeah.
as parents trying to manage, their schedules and what they're doing. And like I say, in the transition between sport times now, we're coming off a cross country for
Hmm.
my older or my middle two.
Hmm.
Um, and so then they get like a week or two where they get to come home. Like it's so weird, like them showing up at 2:15. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is the normal time you're supposed to be home, not like 6 or 7:30. Like, oh, okay, so you
Right.
come straight home. Like, and so just when they start to get used to that, they go right back into
Yep.
like the long days. And,
Yeah.
the kids get up here probably, I think it's like 5:30. My
Hmm.
daughter gets up to get ready, and then
Yep.
she wakes up her brother because he gets the extra 20 minutes while she showers, and then he hops in, and then they drive over to school. So,
Hmm.
and then so, if you're heading over to school at 6-ish, 6:30, like then by the time that you come home and it's 6:30, 7 o'clock, I mean, you put in 12
I
hours,
know, right?
like a lot of school plus like just like a lot of exercise too. So
Yeah.
this is kind of a refueling time for them. Like I've been
Mm-hmm.
telling them to make sure that they get their rest, like
Hmm.
trying to hit all those things that they talk about for performance. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, maybe you should get 8 hours of sleep, for this next couple weeks. And then maybe you should actually eat a meal,
Hmm.
regularly throughout the day. And, if you're
Yeah.
going to go for a run in the afternoon just to keep your endurance up, like, make sure
Hmm.
you eat a snack when you get back and just
Yeah.
trying to like keep them fueled and hydrated so that they can get back at it again because
Hmm.
it's busy.
Yeah, I've been noticing that. I've been sending my kids outside since they've
Mhm.
stopped having rowing because it's like they are, getting that they don't think that they just embrace like having that extra time, but it's
Oh
like
yeah.
they don't realize like Hannah had a headache the other day and she just seemed really tired and I'm like, let's go for a walk, let's get some fresh air. Your
Yeah.
body is used to being out there and spending calories and being outside and on the
Yeah.
water and you're not getting that right now. So you gotta like force it, because it's really
Exactly.
easy, especially when it gets so dark out, it's so easy to just get home, veg out, and then the day's gotten
The
away from
day's
you.
done. Yeah.
Yep.
But something exciting that's happening
Ooh.
this weekend. I don't know when these podcasts are going to come out. We'll have to talk about that privately later.
Okay.
But I'm going to be teaching a rowing instruction
Ooh,
certification this weekend. So
nice.
I have a friend who lives in Ohio who's going to be opening a wellness center. So if you live in Dayton, I think it's the Lifestyle Medicine. I'll have to put it in the show notes here if people live in Dayton. She's gonna be opening, believe, for New Year's. She's gonna have spinning classes and rowing classes, and she was looking for someone to do a certification because there's very few rowing certifications out there for
Mm,
fitness instructors who want to learn our sport. So
cool.
so I've kind of put together a bunch of information, and I will be doing a certification with 6 fitness professionals this weekend, and I'll have to
Okay.
let everybody know how that goes. And hopefully, if I figure out how to put it up online, it'll be like an online course that people can purchase and get their certification also. Because I think we have like a little bit of a different take on the use of the rowing machine for fitness because we're not really like because the way we use them to train is not necessarily how you would use them for an actual rowing class.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a mix of learning like the rowing technique, the terms, the drills, those types of things, being able to incorporate that into something that's supposed to be like fitness and fun. And I've been pulling together lists of songs, so I hopefully will have that
Oh,
in the links in Spotify. Songs for 18, 20, 22, 26, 24, 30, and 32.
okay.
Um, so I'm going to be making lists that are just like to row to 32. And then like
Oh,
a good an example of a song that's
yeah.
32 is Britney Spears' Toxic. That is
Okay.
that is set to the rhythm of a 32. I can't think of off the top of my head any other ones.
I was gonna say, I want to hear. So I have my playlist right here, but I don't know what stroke
I
per
have to,
minute they
yeah,
would be.
let me look at my list because I've got a list made.
Some
Let
of
me
mine are
see.
kind of funny, but they just get me through those workouts, I tell you. Let's see.
So, let's see. Bad Romance, by Lady Gaga is
Oh,
also
I have
for
Lady
a
Gaga.
32.
Yep.
Um, Locked Out of Heaven from Bruno Mars is also 32.
Oh, okay.
Um, Katy Perry's Firework is also 32.
Hmm.
Wake Me Up Before You Go Go is
Oh,
also 32.
nice. Is that Wham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see. Dancing Queen. Who knew?
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. That's
So
fun.
so there's some fun ones. So I was gonna before this weekend, if I have a moment, I wanted to give those sample songs to the rowing instructors. So I forget who I am on Spotify. I think it's Adrian Walker Reedy. It's just like my Facebook.
How do you know
So
what the strokes per minute are?
oh, ChatGPT.
Oh, okay. All right. So, do you want to know some of mine that are on my playlist for rowing? All right. I've got My Hero by Foo Fighters,
Okay.
Lose Yourself by Eminem. That
Hmm.
one is really good to erg to, but it starts off like
That
it's
one starts off
hard.
kind of
I
slow.
was
Yeah.
gonna do it for my 2K and I couldn't do it because it's very quiet in the beginning, so there's nothing, and then it starts off good. But I
Hmm.
I do like it. Killing in the Name of by Rage Against the Machine.
Nice.
I got Sabotage by Beastie Boys.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I don't know why I love listening to this, but Popular by Nada Surf. Do you remember that song?
Oh yeah. Da, 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 she's
Unpopular.
popular.
Yes. Let's see if I got another one that I can share on here. Oh, Super Bon Bon by Soul Coughing.
Okay.
These are
Okay.
probably a lot from like when we were in college.
I know there's something about like they say like it's like the way that like our brains are set up. It's like when you're in your formative years,
Yeah.
hearing songs from that time
Hmm.
just it brings you back to such like a happy moment and like
Sure.
all of those songs like I still do my 2K. Well, I don't do 2Ks anymore. I'm gonna do one
Okay.
this winter. Hold me to it.
Okay.
I'm gonna do one this winter.
Ooh.
But when I was doing the 1K, I
Hmm.
would do Prodigy.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. There's something about that song.
Hmm.
Shout out to Kelly Papke
Yep.
on that one. But it's like the perfect pace. At one point it slows down,
Hmm.
and when it slows down, that's like almost 1,000 meters. So if I start
Okay.
it like at the very beginning of the song, that slow portion is about 1,000 meters in. So maybe about it's probably like 350 something is when it starts to slow
Mm-hmm.
down. So it's like only a couple seconds after that, that it's done. So
Hmm.
yeah, but well, yeah, we'll have to put together some like podcast, like go-to rowing lists or
Yeah.
something like that. Ultimate 2K rowing lists or something.
So talking about like doing, pieces on the erg and stuff, do
Mhm.
you have any go-to thing that you tell yourself on just when you're having a hard time getting those strokes in? Like I definitely count strokes.
Ooh,
Or I'll
yeah.
do like 10 strokes for different parts of like my body to think about, like 10 strokes for heels down, 10 strokes for sitting up tall, something like that.
Yeah, I love a good set of focus tens. I think that
Hmm.
that's really helpful. Sometimes I just think to myself like sit
Hmm.
tall, because
Yep.
that just kind of like automatically because I mean I get to the point where I get tired and like I do that like the chest forward kind of thing. So I always have to think
Yeah.
about like sit tall. And I was actually talking to one of my clients about that, like, the fact that when we're teaching rowing, we want it to stay like I always teach a very neutral stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that I'm instructing, I want them to be almost like a blank canvas,
Mm-hmm.
have like all the basics, like not too much layback, but just enough. Like not too much like body angle, but just enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
compressed, but not over compressed, not under compressed. Like I just like to see people in that power position,
Mm-hmm.
like up at the catch, which doesn't really lend itself to extra reach, which
Mm-hmm.
is what a lot of people, like especially as you're trying to do those higher rates and there's so much momentum, like really pushes people into that catch position. So I try to teach like a very neutral stroke for just the idea, like if this is a high schooler, that when you get to whatever university you may go to, you know, row in college, I want your stroke to be like neutral enough that if like you go to a college that wants to do like an exaggerated pause with a little bit of extra layback, you're
Mm-hmm.
adding layback. You're not like
Mm-hmm.
taking it away. I always feel like
Mm-hmm.
if you hang out in those like outlier areas, that it's harder for a coach to make a correction or to stylize your rowing based on what they want to see. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think coaches, like if you wanted to add extra reach and extra rotation up at the catch, like I wouldn't want somebody doing that and have to kind of back them off of that. So I
Mm-hmm.
always try to I'm always very neutral with my coaching position.
Mm-hmm.
Just for that reason, because I mean, and it's healthier for your body too.
Sure.
Like I just,
Yeah.
you know, younger kids like really reaching or really laying back, they just put so much extra stress on their body. So
Mm-hmm.
the other thing I'm not a fan of right now is this at the finish. Like
Oh,
with the erg handle,
yeah.
I'm just kind of like from like a PT standpoint, like
Mm.
flexing your wrists at the finish is not what we do in
Oh
the boat.
no.
We extend our wrists at the finish. So you're
Mm-hmm.
practicing something we don't even do.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is when you bend like it, and I've noticed when people do this, a lot of times they tend to lay back extra
Mm.
and the end of the stroke becomes biceps. So they're
Oh,
actually kind of pulling their
yeah.
biceps in to bring it to their chest rather than like drawing the elbow back and using their shoulder blade muscles and using like their triceps and like they're using totally different muscles at the
Yeah.
finish. So it's like my new pet peeve. I'm kind of like and if you're an Olympian or, you know, a really seasoned college rower and you do that, I'm not going to correct you. Like, more power to you. If you're able to produce your power that way, fantastic. But if you're a high school athlete who's coming to see me because you're not rowing fast enough, you ain't doing, we're not doing that anymore. You're not going to like, we're not pterodactyl or not triceratop. No. Oh my gosh.
T-Rex.
T-Rex.
Yep.
Yeah. Not T-Rex in the arms of the
Yep.
finish. Yeah. I'm not a fan. I don't know.
No. No, I like
Yeah.
a nice, well, in sculling, I like, having that position where you can just push down like this so the
Yeah.
elbow's out. And same thing in sweep, you know. I
Yeah.
was always taught
You want
almost
to
like point down the
Yep,
handle.
point down the handle, down the
Yep.
handle. Yeah, like you want to have that leverage. And I
Yep.
just think like spending the winter doing this over and
Hmm.
over again, I don't know. I just don't think it's a good idea. But I would love for someone to challenge me on it and like
Mm.
and give me a good reason why people should be doing it that way. I mean, I understand the idea of extra chain link out of the machine and kind of like, but with the amount of pressure that the arms can contribute at that point, I'm just like, is it making any difference? Is it actually putting more force underneath your force curve? And I don't think it does.
Right.
I mean, the only thing you could be doing is like really like messing up your wrist flexors and giving yourself some type of compartment syndrome from
Yeah.
all that extra flexion because you're holding the handle too. So it's like you're
Right.
holding the handle and you're like flexing
Hmm.
the wrist flexors. So I just think it's a
Yeah.
lot. It's just a lot.
Do you ever use that setting on the erg where it shows the curve?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love the force curve. I don't
Hmm.
think the C2 screen gives as much information
Mm.
as I personally like to see. Like I
Hmm.
use Row Hero.
Oh, okay.
And
Yep.
yeah, so I love how Row Hero will give you like that nice big curve. Like, and when I'm in clinic, I'll put it on a tablet.
Hmm.
So then it's like it's nice and big. I'll try to get it as close to the erg so that the rower can see it.
Hmm.
And I was just working with an athlete who does this, who brings her
Hmm.
hands up there, and you can see how her curve would drop off towards the finish. Like
So
she
that's
just
a
put it.
great
couldn't really
learning
take.
tool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I was like, okay, draw it. And like I always say like bottom of the sports bra or like,
Hmm.
the CPR spot. I'm like, draw the handle in and try to continue your power from your trunk. So I love the force curve. I think like you really have to understand what it's telling you and like be able to then translate that into like making changes. Or it's really nice because Row Hero will do like these smoothness strokes. So as you produce a force curve that stays close to the predicted based on how you start the stroke, you'll do like these fire strokes. I've gotten up to like I think like 300 and something like in a row where you're just producing that same amount of pressure each stroke, and it's really nice for kids who are trying to learn consistency.
Hmm.
And then when you start to fall off of the curve, you can be like, okay, what am I doing? Like, should I sit up a little bit? Should I draw that handle nice and even into my chest? Like, you can kind of work on form things, like, because like the first half of that, like the curve is like three portions, like one third, one third, one third, and it's like the legs is the front part of the curve, middle is like trunk, end of the curve is are the arms, and so you're looking at how is that force translating from one end to the other.
Hmm.
And you can find all sorts of things. Like people who open early, you'll get like this little lump in the curve in the
Mm.
front. Like I find people with back pain or back issues, weakness in the back, there'll be a disconnect somewhere in that first third where
Okay.
it'll kind of dip off of the where it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, some people have kind of like they lose it in the middle where they almost like shoot the slide. If you shoot the slide out, you can get kind of like this middle issue. It's really interesting. It's good to know what your curve looks like. And they
Hmm.
say like your curve is like your fingerprint. Like
Okay.
it's like it's an interpretation of like how you produce power, like how your body actually like makes the forces happen through your muscles. So
Hmm.
it's very individual. It's almost like a golf swing. Like you could change your curve, but it
Hmm.
would take like as much effort as it is to change the way that you swing a golf club.
Hmm.
So it's not necessarily going to change all that much, but like what you want to do is you want to try to push the curve out. You want to try
Hmm.
to put as much force as possible underneath the curve. So that's kind of like, yeah.
Do people tend to have, I've only looked at the screen like once or twice, so I don't know much about it, and it was on the seat, the concept too, but
Yeah.
do people tend to have a similar curve at different like rates or pressures? The-
What I'm finding is people's curves tend to even out as you increase the stroke rate.
okay,
So
because
there'll be
you don't
something.
have time to think about it, or
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's just like when you add a lot of force to it, it just kind of evens it out.
okay.
So like somebody who like for that athlete who was having trouble at the end of her curve, like it was less prominent when her stroke rate went up because she was just putting more force through the machine.
Mm,
Like the less force that like you're trying to put through the machine will like kind of accentuate where the issue is because there'll be more of a difference. Whereas when you're putting a lot of pressure through, like even like I mean, I haven't compared it to pressure strokes,
hmm.
like pressure stroke, but what I do notice in clinic is like if I have somebody row at an 18 versus theirs curve at a 32, like at an 18, it'll be very, very clear what
Hmm.
they're doing.
Mm,
Whereas at a
okay.
32, it's not as bad. It actually
Hmm.
cleans up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting stuff. And I always say about like I always say biomechanics is kind of like the sheet music
Hmm.
to rowing. Like so like as a coach, like using your eye and kind of looking at things, like you'll know who's opening early or
Hmm.
who's shooting their tail or like who like has poor finish position, those types of things. You can see them, but then like I think like of the biomechanics and the numbers and things like row hero and C2 logbook and those types of things, or crew lab even, I mean they put that data together and kind of paint like the full picture and let you know exactly what's going on.
Hmm.
So I mean for people who have like very little things that they're working on, the data becomes much more important. So that's like why your Olympians like row with like the Peach system, which is an advanced like force measurement system. It takes foot plate measurement, seat
Oh
measurement,
my gosh.
Orlock measurements. Like it combines all these different things because they're going to be working towards like hundredths of a seconds of difference in, like looking at things like catch slip and finish slip. Like, and slip is like the amount of time that it takes for that blade to enter into the water fully. And then
Hmm.
how does the blade exit the water? Does it wash out or does it exit and feather? Like they can take numbers and figure all that stuff out. It's pretty wild.
Wow.
It's fun stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but it's like you can do all this fancy stuff, or you can catch a lot of it as just like, with your coach eye
Hmm.
too. But it's nice to have, especially if your team is like a high tech team, like you need to be very accurate about those things, and
Hmm.
all those different tools are really, really helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's way more than I know about. So I've never heard of Peach.
I mean, it's a wild system. I mean, there's like the boat's like all like wired up. So like
Wow.
but it gives coaches like, all the information that they need to kind of make those decisions. And
Hmm.
you got to be on all practice because they can see every single stroke if they wanted to. So they know if you're pushing hard or if
Yep.
you're kind of taking it easy. Like there's nowhere to hide when they're taking all that data.